Happy hour tip-off time, baby. Tuesday edition. No, I am not Joe Ranieri. Dan Alexander here, filling in for the great Joe, holding things down. And don't worry, even though Joe's not here, still got a great show planned for you. Plays and analysis coming for 6 games on the board tonight from some of the best in the biz. That's right. Joining me, I got Bryan Power, I got Adam Trigger, and I got Steve Merrill holding things down here. And Adam, the rose between two thorns here, just because they're wearing matching colors. I'm not saying that we have thorns on the outside; they're all roses across the board here. But we got the guys in the blue and the maize, and then we got Cuse holding it down in the middle. But guys, I'm happy to be here with you. Typically, when I'm filling in, we're talking some NBA. So me as a college basketball fan, but definitely not someone who's capping it on the daily. I'm looking forward to learning alongside the listeners here. So, guys, let's get right into it. And it's funny because anytime that I'm filling in, somehow you're on the dais. So I don't know if there's some correlation that you're getting Joe out of here, you're making sure, or if it's that he's taking vacation when he sees Brian's name on there, brother. But regardless, happy to be here with you, and we got some big games to break down. You want to talk a little Kansas as they're up to 7-point favorites against BYU. What are we thinking, Brian?
Yeah, well, Dan, hopefully Joe's treating himself because at the end of yesterday's show where he had to deal with me, I did say to take Mississippi Valley State on the money line, and by God, they won outright, their first win of the year. So maybe that's what Joe's doing today, celebrating his winnings there. Let's talk BYU, Kansas, and let's start with the BYU half of the equation, okay? This is a team that was dominant in the non-conference portion of the schedule. It was actually, I was standing right next to Trig in the Encore Casino in Boston, and I said, Trig, this BYU might be a top 5 team in the country. This was, again, back the first weekend of December. I knew that was cue for that picture to come up. But let's talk about what's happened
Love is in
since
the air.
I said those words to Trey about BYU. BYU's sort of fallen out of our hearts, I guess, because as expected, the Big 12 has proven to be a challenge for the Cougars. Right now, there's a couple narratives that you're going to hear. One is, well, okay, BYU just played a really easy non-conference schedule, but that doesn't account for, you could say the same for Iowa State, right? Iowa State, I think even by Ken Palm's metrics, played a weaker non-conference schedule than BYU, and they've been just fine in the Big 12. Therefore, I think it stands to reason what we have with BYU, and this was the worry we were all thinking coming into conference play. It's their first year in the toughest conference of America, and they have predictably struggled. And where have they predictably struggled, Dan? The road. On the conference road so far, BYU's 2-5 straight up, 1-6 against the number. Over the weekend, they were they came in to Manhattan, Kansas. They were ranked 25th in the country was BYU. They were an underdog to an unranked Kansas State team. They lose outright. Now, after flying home to Provo, they come back to Lawrence for what is the toughest road matchup in this conference. Fog Allen Fieldhouse, Kansas, 14-0 straight up at home this year. One of 17 teams in the country, oh, by the way, without a home loss this season. So all the above really does seem to justify this being a multi-possession spread, even though, honestly, I have these two teams still power rated pretty even. There's no McCullough for Kansas. That's important because this is not a deep team whatsoever, though they did just win by 19 over Texas. 3-point variance, guys. I think we'd all agree if we could handicap this before the games tip off, we'd all be multimillionaires. And BYU, if they need to hit their threes to have any chance here, they didn't hit their threes against Kansas State. They were 6 of 31 from behind the arc in that game. This is a team that loves to put it up from behind the arc, Dan, second nationally in 3-point attempts per game at 32.4. But Kansas defends the rim well. BYU doesn't defend in transition well. I want to take BYU really bad, but Kansas, I think, is the right side in this one. Big home court advantage of all the conferences in America, third strongest in the Big 12. That's the third highest straight-up home win percentage. Big 10 is number 2. Number 1, most people would not have guessed this, Conference USA. That shocked me to learn, but I'm on the home team here, Kansas, in the Big 12. Lay it.
With the home team and our producer Robert doing a terrific job behind the scenes, getting up the bromance graphic that we all know and love. I'm glad to see, even though February is coming to an end, the month of love with Valentine's Day being in it. Love, as Steve Merrill said, still in the air and still alive and well. And Trig, I see you rocking the Cuse hoodie today. Also alive and well is this nice little run that they've been on. Sure, they had that little loss there, broken up to Georgia Tech, but wins over North Carolina, North Carolina State, Notre Dame most recently. This nice little run here for Cuse continuing tonight as they're taking on Va Tech, or are you wearing the reverse jinx hoodie today? What are we thinking?
Nah, Dan. So I'm going to do what I did yesterday. Pick the big game and talk about it from the side and the total. So I'll kind of give you two picks and two angles here. Yesterday, the under was as easy as it gets in the TCU game, but unfortunately, TCU stayed in the
Mm,
locker room and did not win. So we'll try to hopefully go 2-0. At least I hope to give you some info that'll could get you to one or the other. So we'll start with just the game itself. This really is a big game. I mean, this is as big of a game
yeah.
as it gets from a bubble perspective. It really feels like do or die for both teams as far as like the at large berth is going to die if they lose this one, and it is a big home spot for Syracuse where they've been good, 13-2 at home this season. So that bodes well for Syracuse. They've done well in this spot, and they've done well historically in this spot as a favorite. Now, in this game, they're a favorite, not a huge one, but they are up to -1.5. So it's that's something to note there. Now, from the total here, I think there could be a ton of points in this game. It's almost where I think is probably the stronger angle is the over. I disagree with the fact that I'm looking at my odds screen right now. It looks like it's down to 153 from where it opened, maybe 155 most places. I would disagree with that move. I see issues with both of these teams guarding the other team. Syracuse doesn't guard the perimeter well, and I mean they really don't guard well at all. You saw what happened over the weekend. They tried to go into a zone against Notre Dame and got shot out of the zone by Notre Dame. If they do that against Virginia Tech, they'll probably score a boatload of points. But Virginia Tech, this team is horrible at defending the rim, and they're really bad against defending athletic guards. And that's one thing that Syracuse has, maybe as much as any team in this conference, is real athletes at the guard position. Judah Minch, JJ Starling should be able to get whatever they want here going to the rim. I can't see Virginia Tech being able to stop either of them. And also, I don't know that Virginia Tech can stop transition opportunities, which you got to remember this Adrian Autry Syracuse team is much different than the Syracuse teams of past years. They want to get up and down, push the pace, and get to the rim as quickly as possible. And that is not where Virginia Tech tends to excel. Go back to the North Carolina game a couple weeks ago. Really, for both of these teams, Syracuse was able to beat UNC on this floor. Virginia Tech run out by North Carolina in their game, another team that likes to push the tempo. So, Virginia Tech, they had a really nice win a couple weeks ago over Virginia. But I think what's important to note about that spot is they got to play them once earlier this year, and really were kind of out of that game, battled back. But I think they were able to like take what they learned and adjust and come out with a pretty good game plan for Virginia. But Virginia's a totally different team. They play slower, more up Virginia Tech's alley than Syracuse. And again, they haven't seen Syracuse yet this year. So the other thing that really concerns me here for V Tech, Dan, is there's no real rebounding edge. Virginia Tech's outside of the
Mhm.
top 300 nationally in rebounding. And that's one place that Cuse, since Benny Williams has gotten kicked off the team or left the team, which has been a great move for Syracuse. I believe they're 3-1 since he left. And I know that he's been kind of a cancer in the locker room since his entire time here. But one thing that he really brought to this team was the rebounding edge. They a rebounding ability. Syracuse has basically lost the rebounding battle in every game they've played since. And but Virginia Tech, at least the numbers would suggest that they can't really take advantage of that because they're a terrible rebounding team as well. So, you know, from a coaching standpoint, I don't like Autry yet. I think he's maybe gotten the team sort of motivated. You could tell that there's a better tone with them since Williams left the team, but I don't think Autry is a particularly great coach. So I give Virginia Tech the edge in the coaching department. But this really does feel like a decent matchup for Syracuse. I go back to the lack of rim defense and the fact that Mintz and Starling are so much more athletic than Virginia Tech's guards. So matchup edge there for Syracuse in addition to being at home. But Dan, I think I like the over the best here because you've got a team in Syracuse that can't guard the perimeter, and Virginia Tech will likely get points, from the perimeter in their shooting. And then you've got a Virginia Tech team that can't guard the rim and struggles in transition. The two things that Syracuse should really be able to exploit. So I'll give you two picks for this one. I lean towards Syracuse to win this game at home, but I really do expect points and expect this one to go up and over the current number of 153.5.
Yeah, and Trigger saying, hey, forget what the marketplace is doing. That just gives us a little more value on the over in Syracuse. And that, of course, is Adam Trigger, one of the best parts of the bromance that is the powder. That's right. I got you guys a couple name. I came to me while he was breaking down both sides of the game. Powder, the power couple. We need to get a promo around that. I'm gonna talk to head office. I'm gonna get that worked up for you guys. We'll figure that out. Powder, drop it in the chat. And also, we got triple digits viewing, guys, and we really appreciate it. We'd love it if you hit that like button, whether you're watching with us live or on the rewatch. Hit the like button for these guys dropping this free info for you. And we still got one more big game breakdown before we get into best bets. And that, of course, is from Steve Merrill. And Joe always likes to say double R's, 1L. Well, I'm thinking, Steve, what are we thinking in this Mississippi State game? It looks like they're up to 3.5. That's pretty much painted across the live odds screen over at WagerTalk.com. Total opposite of Trigger's game is ticking up. What are you eyeing in this big game?
Yeah, and some of the viewers like to say 2 R's, no L's, and that's been the case the last couple of nights, Dan. Perfect 5-0 sweep Sunday and Monday on the best bets and both free plays that I posted on my page. So check out those 3 best bets tonight and a bonus college free play on my page, Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com. Big game breakdown. This is a huge game tonight. ESPN National TV, 7 o'clock Eastern, and we had a nice winner for my clients on Saturday on Kentucky, a blowout best bet winner against Alabama. Fast-paced, high-scoring game. Easily got over the 175 total, ended up 100 and something and 90 something. I mean, I lost count. It was so high scoring, that 117-95 win. But I do think Kentucky could come back down to earth tonight. I would not be on the Kentucky side. I do think they're a play-on team. That's one of the reasons I had them as the best bet Saturday. Very talented team, but they have shown the ability to let down at times. Keep in mind, they pulled the upset at Auburn last week and then followed it up with a loss at LSU as a 6-point favorite. This is also a situation where we're fading the public. I talk a lot about this come March Madness, but we're getting even closer the last week of February. There is more public consensus now to work with here in these late conference games and the tournaments around the corner. And Kentucky is a public dog tonight, so we're fading a public dog, which I always love to do. And as Brian Power will tell you, taking these non-ranked home favorites against ranked road teams has also been a pretty strong play the last few seasons. And as I've often pointed out, that is also a default to fade the public underdog metric, and that applies here as well. Let's look at the earlier meeting here to see if we could trust Mississippi State laying the number, and I think we can for a few reasons. Kentucky has won 18 of the last 19 straight up, 9 of the last 10, 18 of the last 19. I get that. They own this series. That does make you a little nervous about laying points when a team has won an 18 straight up recently, but this is a very good Mississippi State defense. It's a huge step up in class after playing LSU and Alabama. And if Kentucky lets down at all on the road, hostile environment, it's going to be a tough spot. And Kentucky also relies heavily for the three-point shot. They take 24 threes a game. They hit 41% on the season, which is one of the best in the nation. But Mississippi State's one of the best three-point defenses in the nation, allowing just 28% from beyond the arc. And they held Kentucky at Kentucky earlier last month in January to just 30% shooting from three. The difference was Kentucky did quite well down low, and they got to the free throw line 27 times to 10. And you might say, well, they have a big edge down low, but I'm not sure that's the case because on the season, Mississippi State has actually gotten to the free throw line 22 times a game and allowed only 19. Kentucky's gotten there only 19 times and given up 22 free throws, and that's on top of playing at a very fast pace. So I think that was more home officiating bias. Mississippi State not playing well on the road. I look for the exact opposite tonight. Let's fade the public and take this contrarian call with the non-ranked home favorite, Mississippi State minus the 3.5. And oh, by the way, the sharp money agrees. This line opened 2.5. It's up to 3.5 now across the board at 7 o'clock Eastern.
The fishy line, the sharp side, whatever you want to break it down, Steve Merrill is eyeing that. And he mentioned fading the public. That's a video you always like checking out here on the Wager Talk YouTube channel. Also, highly suggest checking out the college top 25 video that Steve posts here on a weekly basis. It's a great wealth of information. So, if you want to know more than your buddies, it's a great video to watch. If you want to know more than the book sometimes, suggest checking that out and the other wealth of content that we have here at Wager Talk TV on the YouTube channel. Best way to find all of it, hit that little subscribe button. And if you're here, it's because we know you love college basketball. Well, you can grab a 5% college basketball play from our man Robbie V. Rob Vino was on Wager Talk today. Earlier today, he's got a 5% play up for just $2. So you can find that change in your couch. Go and grab it now. Ride with Rob Vino, a 5%er rocking in college basketball tonight. Let's get to some free plays here, boys. The chat has been dropping their free plays all show long. We appreciate you doing so. And if you're watching on the rewatch, make sure you're commenting below. We want to know what you're betting tonight, but I want to know what the experts are betting tonight as well. And we'll start with my man, Bryan Power. Bryan, let folks know what they can find over at your page. And also let us know if Wake Forest is going to be injuring another player storming the court here tonight as they're taking on Notre Dame. How are you going to be betting this one?
Yeah, no court storming discourse on this program, at least not from me. Look,
had to get it in there.
WT.buzz
For the algorithm, I had to get it
of course.
in there.
Yes, we have to. We are federally required because a Duke player was involved, so we have to talk about it. But WT.buzz/BP is where you will find tonight's best bet in college. I have a 4% play. Did lose on TCU last night. Trig mentioned how they did just couldn't make a shot in the first half. You're 0 for 8 in the first half. From 3, you're not going to come back and win many games. But, Dan, we're still 38-23 with all best bets, all sports going back to Christmas, up 85 units with all basketball plays. That's NBA and college over the last 13 months. Not only do I have a 4% best bet tonight in college, I have an NBA play as well. That's a late night tip. So, best thing, you can get them both for $39 with the one day all access. Again, WT.buzz/BP. Just like it says on the screen. Now, let's talk about Wake Forest, Notre Dame, shall we? I had Wake Forest on Saturday. They were yet another unranked home favorite. Despite the fact Duke was number 8 in the country, Wake gets it done. They made their free throws late, covered the number there. It was a great week for the team from Winston-Salem because before that Duke game, they blew out Pitt. But both those games were at home where Wake is unbeaten. They're the only ACC team unbeaten at home, and they don't miss from 3 when they play at home, Dan. Now they head to South Bend, okay? And I know Notre Dame is not the most attractive team to back, but again, I think this is a great spot to fade Wake off the big win over Duke. And something that really surprised me in handicapping this into the top 20 in the KenPom ratings, that seems a little high to me, even as someone who bet them on Saturday. The one caveat is Notre Dame did get down big against Syracuse. They were down by as many as 29 before storming back and making that a close game. Nevertheless, the spot says fade Wake, take the points with the home team, Notre Dame, plus 6.5. That's my best bet for the show today. One more time, WT.buzz/BP for today's 4% winner.
And as much as I'm sure Joe would like me to argue, who am I to argue about the guy who called the money line last night on that big dog right there? So I'm gonna leave it. Bryan Power saying fade him and fade Wake Forest off the big win. He's taking Notre Dame best bet. Hop below in the chat. You agree, you disagree, or you have something else that you're eyeing. Of course, guys, it wouldn't be the happy hour tip-off show if we didn't have Adam Trigger talking some mid-major basketball for a best bet. So let's talk some Bonnies, Loyola, Chicago. What are we eyeing, Trig?
Yeah, so I was on the show yesterday as well. If you watched the show, you got one of my 4%ers, which won. It actually also won outright. That was Campbell. I don't believe I actually said anything about the money line, but still a nice winner right there. My other play lost, and so 1-1, and I've got one up for tonight. I haven't added a second one yet, but this is one I'm considering. So I will circle back and let you know on Twitter if I do add this as a best bet. One of the main reasons I haven't added this yet, I got to admit right here, I think the L in Loyola Chicago's logo is what I take every time I fade this team because I cannot pick a good spot to bet against them. But I truly don't believe I truly believe they're still in line for some regression. Like I look at the metrics this year to last year. Remember, last year, this was a team that was 10-21 overall and 4-14 in the A10. And a lot of the numbers are not that different. Now, they're definitely their offensive efficiency is better. But you talk about last year, the big reasons that they were so bad, the turnovers. Well, they're still turning the ball over a ton, 273rd nationally, over 12 times a game. They still don't rebound particularly well. They still don't shoot free throws well. There's a lot of things that, still feel like last year's team. It just seems like last year they had maybe the worst negative variance ever, and this year they're getting it all back and then some with the positive variance. But there's still appeal to going against them. And one thing that's very difficult for them here is the spot and this trip to Olean, New York. Now, people are always asking me because they know I live in central New York. Oh, you're kind of near St. Bonaventure a little bit. And I'm always like, no, nothing is near St. Bonaventure. It's literally near nothing. It's over 3 hours for me. It's 90 minutes from Buffalo. It gets billed as like Rochester, New York's like D1 team on occasion, yet it's almost 2 hours from Rochester. So the point I'm trying to make there is it's a very difficult trip. I don't know if the A10 is still taking bus trips everywhere, but I know there's some well documented like horror stories of like Richmond trying to come up here with a bus trip, and it's just and now of course Loyola is coming from Chicago. Even if you fly in, you're still on a bus for 2 hours. And you got to remember too, this is a one-off midweek trip, right? It's not. It's a little bit better maybe if it's part of like a multi-city road trip. Maybe you're going out to UMass, you play Bonnie's on the way, but to have to turn around from Chicago, go to Olean, and then go back is not the easiest trip. And I base that off of historical like teams really struggling in this spot on the road at St. Bonaventure. This year they're 10-3. The Bonnies have been a little like Jekyll and Hyde. When they look good, they're really, really good. I've got to see them play twice in person this year. The first game I watched them beat Niagara by almost 40. I then went and watched them play at Dayton in a game where they covered, but they were still pretty good. And they've got 2 wins over UMass. They beat VCU twice. Absolutely demolished St. Joe's on this floor a couple weeks ago. But then they've got the other side where I came on WagerTalk today and made a case for them against LaSalle, and they lost that game and was never close. So, that's been it's been hard to jump in with the Bonnies because you never really know which one you're going to get. But at home in this spot, I feel like they show up. Loyola's kind of, worked their way up to the top of the A10. So certainly St. Bonaventure's not going to really be taking them for granted. And they seem to have shown up against the better teams in the league. I already referenced Dayton, the fact that they beat VCU twice, the 2 wins over UMass. They seem to really show up against the better teams in this league. The other thing they do extremely well, the Bonnies that is shoot the 3-point shot. They've been top 25 nationally all year, and they've got 3 or 4 guys that can do it. Loyola has been a beneficiary of some very stark, 3-point shooting splits lately where no one can seem to hit a 3 against them. And, some of that is good defense. Loyola does well to contest shots, but there's an element of randomness when it comes to 3-pointers going in. And St. Bonaventure makes them at home typically. And this team, they've got a lot of guys that can do it. Mika Adams-Woods, Charles Pride, Flowers, they're all 40% 3-point shooters. Banks can get hot at a moment's notice. He hit a bunch of 3s in the game I went and saw him at Dayton. So I do feel like the matchup is pretty good here. I would say the only thing that kept this off my client card so far was the fact that I'm going to have to lay more than one key number to get it done. Of course, this is -3.5 everywhere. I don't necessarily think that's a bad number, though. It's just kind of one of those things where Loyola Chicago just continues to like gut out results. And I guess I haven't fully decided whether I want to go ahead and lay the 3.5, but I certainly think the Bonnies win. If they win, they probably do cover that number. And it feels to me like when Loyola does take a loss, it's going to be like in grand fashion here. Just the way they've been running it, it's probably going to happen all at once. So St. Bonaventure -3.5, best bet for the show. If I end up adding this, I will certainly let you know on Twitter. But it's probably the second strongest thing I see on the board tonight. The strongest being the 4%er I have up on my page.
And you can grab that 4% or WT.buzz/AT. And yeah, I agree with you as far as the 3-pointers go, kind of having some randomness to that. But I also think in the same breath, there is some credence to when you have a team that you see strongly shooting at home. It does kind of make sense when you think about common sight lines and think about, just knowing the gym as well. Because think about how many times there's teams that shoot the lights out, they go on the road, or they get into the big dance, and it is the complete opposite. So while there is randomness, I think the point you made having some legitimacy to having those numbers skew higher at home. I think it's worth that look. Just wish we didn't have to lay that extra hook, but that's the best bet for our man Adam Trigger there. Again, you can check him out at WagerTalk.com. Steve Merrill has a best bet coming up here as well, and it's one that the Gold Sheet is also agreeing with. And you can grab the Gold Sheet Light today for free. I'll tell you about that in a little bit, because first, I want to hear what Steve Merrill's thoughts are on this one.
Going to look at a free late night college basketball TV game for you here on national TV in just a moment. Quick reminder, I have 3 strong best bets going tonight on Tuesday, 2 in college hoops, 1 in the NBA. Individually, each game is 25. I get the 3-for-1 special for just 29. That's getting the second and third games each for just $2 each. So you can make your own little $2 Tuesday with that 3-for-1 special. And you might want to pay attention. 5-0 sweep on Sunday and Monday in best bets and additional free plays. And also #1 all season long on all college basketball and pro basketball sides combined since the season began in October. In fact, I went back and checked in the history of Wager Talk. I've now won more units on basketball sides, college and pro combined, than anybody else. And the monster season continues with 3 strong best bets tonight on Tuesday and a bonus daily free play. Check it out, Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com. And while you're there, check out the 1-week special, instant $75 discount. I'm sorry, 30-day special, instant $75 discount. And also the 1-year special, instant $800 discount. I have special promo codes on my page along with that free play, Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com. Get there quicker. Shortcut WT.buzz/SM. Go look at a free late night game in college hoops. And the theme of the show has been taking these, fading the public dogs. And Nevada is another public dog tonight, as Colorado State just fell out of the top 25. In fact, Nevada's outside looking in as well. These teams currently 32nd and 33rd in the additional votes. But boy, what a tough week for Colorado State. They fell out of the coaches' top 25. They're not even getting a single additional vote now. So I think they will be more than motivated after the back-to-back road losses at New Mexico and UNLV last week knocked them out of the polls. But they were an underdog in both games. No shame in either loss. And as is often the case, road teams don't shoot as well as home teams. And Colorado State struggled, shooting just 41 and 39% of those 2 losses, but their defense was fantastic once again, allowing less than 38% shooting from the field on the road. And that'll be the difference in this game. They catch a Nevada team coming in off of 6 wins in their last 7, 3 straight wins. They beat up on the hapless San Jose State Spartans, who have now failed to cover 10 of their last 11. Huge step up in class here for Nevada. Colorado State, meanwhile, has been playing tougher opponents. And I also like the fact that it's a revenge game for Colorado State on a strong home court where they are 14-1 straight up. Revenge works best with Class A teams, off a loss, focus spot, strong home court, and we get all of that working for us. So let's dig into that box score from January 24th and see if we can find some additional value. And I think we can. Nevada shot 40% from 3. Colorado State was just 26% from 3. They missed 17 3-pointers. Lost that game by 13. It'll be different at home. They will shoot much better tonight. I like Colorado State here. Lay the number with Colorado State -7, and let's fade the public here with this late night winner at 10:30 Eastern on Fox Sports 1.
Bang, that's Steve Merrill, and that's the best bets from the crew. As I mentioned before, I threw it there to Steve, the Gold Sheet play of the day, looking towards this Colorado State team as well. And if you want to try out the Gold Sheet, what's a better way to do it than if it's free? It's for me. How about a free issue of the brand new Gold Sheet Light? You can get it at WT.buzz/TGS. You don't want to break down 40 plus NBA and college basketball games? Hey, let them do it for you. Stats, analysis, recommended plays, breaking down player injuries like Nevada star Kevin Blackshear, who's battling a leg injury, only scored 4 points against San Jose State in 29 minutes on the court. You can get that kind of info for free today, thegoldsheet.com. And while you're at Wager Talk, check out these 3 guys as well. Bryan Power, Adam Trigger, and Steve Merrill. You see up there on the screen a little recap for you. The Bonnies, Colorado State for Steve. We got Notre Dame plus the spot for Bryan. and the Gold Sheet play of the day in agreement with Steve Merrill and how he's running. That's a good place to be for the Gold Sheet. Again, you can check that out for free at wt.buzz/TGS. Head on over to wagertalk.com while you're waiting around for the NBA tip-off show. That's coming up live here in just a few hours on the WagerTalk TV YouTube channel. Until next time, for my guys, Adam Trigger, Brian Power, and Steve Merrill, I've been Dan Alexander. Best of luck this evening. Cash those tickets, folks, and stick around for more content here on the WagerTalk TV YouTube channel.